Okay, I think we're all back, are we? Yeah. I'll turn this off.
Can I ask one question about last segment?
Yeah.
There was a line you wrote as a possibility, something about arrogance.
Oh, yeah.
A man living untrue or...
Yeah, I think there's a quote that Steve Hardison has used as a possibility. False humility is the ultimate arrogance.
Is that what a document can be sometimes?
Pardon?
Is that what a document can be sometimes?
I don't know. I think for me, it's the whole that quotation for me. What it represents is when we play small, or if we play small, so that somehow we're kind of hiding our light so that it won't impact others. And there's a sense in which I'm sure probably most of you, or if not all of you, familiar with there's a quote by Marianne Williamson where she talks about it's our light, not our darkness, that we fear most. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. So I think it speaks to that, and us shining our light as opposed to diminishing ourselves so that somehow people won't be uncomfortable around our greatness. But we're all great. It's not that somebody's greater, anybody's greater than anybody else. We all have greatness in us. And I think the document for me is, it's not that it's representative of my greatness, it's just representative of the way I see my document. It is the best form of words that I have been able to come up with that describe who I really am, my true self. That's how I see it. And everybody else has a version. Everybody else's document is their version of their truest self, their true self. It's just it's who we are for me, who we are at a level of soul is kind of that's formless. And the best we can do is to give words or shape or meaning to things, where we're limited in how we can communicate that. But I think the document is the best form of words that I have seen that describe who I believe myself to really be.
I titled my document actually the Soul Agreement.
Say that again?
Soul Agreement, my document.
Soul Agreement.
Soul Agreement.
Right.
Soul Agreement to Self.
Yeah.
Because for me, my document is who I truly am,
right.
True self is.
Yeah.
When you release the ego of the personal persona, who I am to my death.
Yeah.
Who God created us to be. Yeah. And I feel that just releasing all the limited beliefs, the trauma, the pain, and the more you release, the more you let go, you will find who you truly are.
Yeah.
You let go of all the stories.
Yeah.
And I feel for me that my agreement helps me to do that and to step into who I am.
Lovely. That's very powerful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. Any other questions coming up for anybody? Okay. So we're going to move into the document creation process. This is what Ankush took me through, and to the best of my knowledge, this is pretty well what I'm conscious. I might say that Eric told me to stay a bit more. Sorry, Eric. Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, this is what Ankush went through with Steve over. Now he did his over a 10-hour coaching program over I think, did he say May to July? So he did this over a few months as opposed to I did it over a few days, and then had to kind of take a couple of months to tidy it up or to finish it off. And so where this starts is that actually, let me ask you a question. The question is, I'm going to phrase this. Think about this for a minute. Who has a document? Okay, in this room. Okay, so let me widen the net. Who in the world has a document? Everyone. Yeah, everyone has a document. It's just that everybody doesn't realize that they have a document. So the way I'm assuming I'm seeing this in a very similar way to you is that I grew up with, in the family that I grew up in the school that I grew up in, the culture and the environment that I grew up in. And that culture, environment, family sent me a lot of messages about how that environment saw me. And I came to believe some of that was true. So when Ankush, the first process, the first step, I'm going to wind up a little bit. The first step that Ankush took us through was the listening distinction that I went through right at the start, the levels of listening. And he said, this is really important because this is not about, this process requires you to get really good at listening to yourself and the language that you use about yourself for yourself. And so it wasn't that it was for that reason, So I had my dad listening that I talked about earlier on, and we all, you all have a name in mind, and so I had my dad listening. And what Ankush had us do was, for me, I had to use my dad listening to create a list of all of the different, a list of I am statements. So I am not good enough. And it was I'm not good enough as a dad. I'm not good enough as a husband. I'm not good enough as a coach. I'm not good. I had all of these. So those are examples of the sorts of things that I was coming up with. And so what he was saying was, I want you to really use your best listening to plumb the depths of your soul, to connect with all of the different ways that you judge yourself, that you criticize yourself, that you're harsh with yourself, that your language is hard, judgmental, critical, lacking in empathy, lacking in love, and create that list. And so what he sent us off to do was to come up with that list. And at the time, in fact, I have it on this. I think I can find it. I had a very long list of let's see, document. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so I'll share some of these in a minute. That was the first step in this, was to begin to realize that creating a document was not actually creating something that didn't exist, in the sense of us having a document. We all had a document. And what he wanted us to do was to really listen deeply to ourselves, to figure out, what is your current document? And that's the first step in the process. And so the way and I'm going to give you some time here. We'll talk about this, and we'll kind of unpack this a little bit, and then I want to give you half an hour to actually connect with what your own judgments are, and whether you've even if you have a document already, whether you have a document or not, I'm going to encourage you to connect with that list of judgments, because it's in terms of, if you have a document, it doesn't mean that the judgments disappear. They don't disappear. They become less prevalent. They have less of a voice, because the new document, the aim of the new document is to replace the old document. That's kind of how I see that. But I have this old document that is like, well, Peter's not good. I'm not good enough as. That's been around for a long, long time. It has a lot of traction in my system. And there are times when things happen, and it can be really, really innocent, where, Julie might say something to me, oh, did you do the thing, whatever the thing I said I was going to do and I haven't done it. And I can very quickly go right back to not good enough. And what the document allows me to do is to let go of that really quickly. I went through, probably for decades, I could beat myself up for days, weeks even, over simple little things, and be harsh with myself and critical with myself, under the understanding that that's how I will make myself better. If I'm harsh enough with myself, eventually I'll be good enough. Eventually I'll be better. Eventually I'll stop making these mistakes. Eventually I'll stop forgetting. And so the idea that the beginning point is to really connect deeply with that high level of listening, but for yourself. And where are you harsh? Where are you critical? And all you've got to do in a way is create a list of what I'm going to call them I am statements. And I'm going to give you examples. Here are some of the things that I came up with. And I'm going to say this was not the most enjoyable part of the process. I find this difficult. Difficult's not the right word. Uncomfortable. Confronting. It wasn't pleasant. I mean, I work through this process with my clients, and I had one client. We had because of scheduling in our calendars, there was a 3-week gap between the meeting where I sent her off to come up with her list of judgments and our next conversation. And she contacted me after 2 weeks and said, any chance I can meet you earlier? I'm not really liking this. She was sitting with the discomfort of this list of judgments and not liking it. And she was like, can we get to the nicer bit sooner? And so I suppose I want to manage your expectations in some way, in a sense that while these judgments that we can have of ourselves or do have of ourselves, they're there, they're operating, they're quite often in the background, operating at a subconscious level. Whenever we bring them to the front of our minds and whenever we create a big list of them, it's not always fun. So I want to say that. So here's a flavor of what my list was. I'm a failure as a father. I'm not worthy of being loved. I'm not sexually attractive to my wife. I'm a coward and I don't stand up for myself enough. I'm ruled by fear. I'm a good number 2, but I'm not a real leader. I'm not a good listener. I'm a terrible cook. I'm not giving Jules the life that she really wants. I'm terrible with technology. I am that I hold back. I'm afraid that I don't matter. I'm not good enough, and I had a whole lot of, as a coach, as a husband, as a father, as a provider, I am that I play safe and small. I'm afraid to be seen and heard. I'm desperate to be seen and heard. I'm afraid to go all in and play full out. I'm not 100% committed in any area of my life. I'm not creative, and I use that as a reason to avoid trying new things. Now that's just a flavour of where I went to whenever I was given this part of the process. Yours will be very personal to you. These are the sort of things that I came up with. I'm not worth spending money on. And you can see the shift. You know, I spent money on a painting. I would never have spent money on a painting in that way before this. You know, so again, that's just pointing to some of the shifts and the changes. But I suppose just to stay on point, the first part of this process is really connect with your highest level of listening. And just go inside and say, okay, where do I judge myself? Where am I critical with myself? Where am I hard on myself? What is the language? And I want you to just listen. This is about listening for the language that you use for yourself about yourself that is harsh. And I mean, actually, just curious. I want to check in with you. How does this sound? What does this what's coming up as I put that out into the room? And I know some of you have maybe done this before or done something similar, but I want to, just as you either connect with this for the first time or as you reconnect with this, what does this bring up for you? Yes, Judy.
For me, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Because I pride myself in, I've done so much work. And then when I do this exercise, I'm like, dang it, it's still there. It's like it's in the background. And so bringing awareness to it is so important.
Yeah.
Because whether you acknowledge it or not, it's there.
Yeah.
And I always, even with my clients, they ask, well, will it go away? And in my opinion, I said, no, it doesn't. But the goal is, how can you get your document to be louder than those thoughts?
Yeah. Lovely. I love that. I love that. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah. Kayla.
I think it's for me, when you ask yourself these questions about your judgment, where it comes from, like, what are your judgments, is I know I have them and I can hear them, but I'm like, where do I look for them? And connecting with myself to understand them, just to get a better understanding of what they are.
Yeah.
And I guess my biggest thing is just like, where am I supposed to, like, I know they're there,
Yeah.
but like, where?
Yeah. Well, I suppose I'm gonna share. You know, I've had lots of conversations with my wife Jules about this, and you know where I suppose there was two ways I approached this. One was over a period of weeks, every now and again, I would sit down for half an hour and I would actually think about, well, where am I hard on myself? I mean that once I got started, it actually became fairly, in a sense, easy in terms of I would come up with something where it would be like, well, I'm not good enough. You know, I figured that out, and I'm saying, okay, well, where am I not good enough? Where do I think of myself as not good enough? Where am I hard on myself in that area? And I was like, well, I'm pretty hard on myself as a dad sometimes. I'm pretty hard on myself as a husband sometimes. And I'm pretty hard on myself as a coach sometimes. And I'm pretty hard on myself as a friend. And I'm pretty hard on myself I'm pretty hard on myself full stop. You know, and there was lots of, so I just wrote those down. I'm not a good enough husband, father, son, provider. And then the other way was that on the way through, because I was bringing, I suppose, heightened awareness to this as an exercise. Every now and again, I would catch myself saying something like, "Oh, you're stupid," or something like that. You know, and I might be saying, I might actually say it out loud, or catch myself saying something like that out loud. Probably not in a room with people, probably just to myself, or I would catch myself saying something to myself that was hard or harsh or critical. And so I would be listening to it's really about listening to yourself. And it's like, I suppose the way I'm going to describe this, it's just we have there is an inner at least maybe this is just me, but it feels like there is an inner dialogue that I have with myself almost permanently. And sometimes, no, I'm going to say, prior to having my document, that was almost always a conversation where I was giving myself a hard time about some aspect of my life that should be better and wasn't better, and why could I not make it better? And what this became about was actually listening for the language that I used in that internal dialogue. Now, I'm curious. Does that make any sense, or is that helpful, or?
Yeah. So yeah, I
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? What else is that bringing up for anybody?
What's occurring for me now is to kind of think of myself almost like as one of my best friends or something, and to kind of step back out of myself a little bit and kind of, because like sometimes we can have more compassion for people we love than ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like our children, or especially when they're younger and more innocent, so to speak. So for me, what's occurring is to kind of get out of my own, like, this is what I'm doing to myself, and it feels really heavy, and like can I even separate from this, which is just maybe even kind of see myself as like one of my best friends I've had for like 30 years, and imagine her speaking to herself that way and kind of write that down, because then I feel like I can feel more compassion for how I speak to myself, and then maybe see it more clearly. Because it's like you don't want to see what's uncomfortable. So for me, what's occurring is like, if I can see how I'm speaking to myself as how a best friend speaks to herself, maybe I can actually face it a little more deeper, because I think the whole point is we're saying is like, these don't ever completely go away, but if we can go in the cave and really see it, then we can really be with it and release it, because if we don't want to see it, we're not going to deal with it.
Yeah.
So
I really love what you're pointing to. I think that's really powerful as an idea to, step back, see yourself as a good friend.
That I would just like, I feel so sad that you talk to yourself that way, and I feel like it's hard to do that within myself because it feels so real and just kind of like you're enmeshing it.
Yeah.
But like if I can see it as like a friend, then I feel more compassionate and really want to let go of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just what's occurring.
That's lovely. Yeah, because you want to help your friend.
Yeah, right.
And so it's a loving thing to do. It's a compassionate thing to do. It's a heartfelt thing to do.
Yeah.
And this is you turning that on to yourself.
Right.
Oh, it's beautiful. Very, very, very powerful. Yeah. I love that.
I love
Karen.
the question, where am I hurting myself? Because it just changes the frame.
Right.
Instead of what am I thinking about, where do I negatively come up with, where am I hurting myself?
Yeah. 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 Oh, my pleasure. No, I'm well practiced at being hard on myself, so it's yeah. I really do. I think it's just feels like it's almost a rite of passage almost to grow up being hard on ourselves. It seems it's just, I don't know, culturally it just we get these messages and
Almost like you have to be like that, otherwise you're not a good person. If you're not hard on yourself.
Yeah.
At least I grew up in Germany, it's actually, I think it's there.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you some time, and I'm going to give you, what time is it? It's 22. I'm going to give you until. Do you think you could handle 30 minutes? Would that feel too long? So that feel okay? So I'm going to give you 30 minutes to develop your list of I am statements, which are effectively you connecting with your old document, if you like. Mm-hmm. And for those of you who have documents, I'm going to encourage you just to go back and do this again. You reconnect with them, and you might want to even reconnect with them if you have a document that you're utilizing. You might want to reconnect with them in the context of. How have I been doing with that judgment? Has that one? Has my new document drowned that one out in some way, or has the volume of my new document has it become so kind of powerful that's become so almost about what we said, Judy, about one becoming more and one becoming less. You might want to use that to reflect, or you might just want to do the exercise again and reconnect with where am I hard on myself? Where am I critical with myself? Where am I judging myself? And just develop the list and know that it's uncomfortable, probably going to be uncomfortable. And my other encouragement to you is don't give yourself a hard time for having a whole lot of ways in which you give yourself a hard time. It's just let the list be the list. And then what we'll do is we're going to work through the process to turn that list around. And what I want to do is, I want to take you through I want you to experience this, and then I want we'll stop for lunch, and then I want you to experience at a really embodied level what it looks like and what it feels like to turn an old statement into a new statement, a different statement. And I'll talk you through exactly, and we'll hopefully maybe be somebody willing to let me do a demonstration so that you get a feeling of, I really want you to get this at an embodied level today as opposed to just information. I don't want it to be just information. I want it to be, when you walk out of here tonight, you're like, I could take that list and turn that into something totally different and use that. That's really what my hope is for today, for each of you. And even if you have a document, my hope is that it will connect you in some kind of new way with the document that you have, and that you can really begin to see the real power that there is in this work. Any questions before I let you go and do that? Do you, everybody clear on the exercise? No. Okay, so the exercise is what I want, and whenever I talk about this whole idea of having ways in which you judge yourself, are you able to connect with ways in which you're critical of yourself or hard on yourself, or ways in which you give yourself a hard time, or is that, no, I don't know what you mean.
I could do that.
You could do that. So what the exercise is just to write out a list of I am. I am not good enough. I am whatever feels true for you. What are the ways in which you, at some level, you give yourself a hard time? You're critical with yourself. You're harsh with yourself. You're wanting to connect with that inner dialogue that you have with yourself about yourself. This is about you and the conversation that is permanently going on in your mind with yourself about you. Oh, I should have done that. I forgot to do this. Each of those little statements, those little comments are a judgment. And what I'm wanting you to try and do is to connect with all of the different ways in which you're critical with yourself. So it's a list of statements that begin with the word I am, and there will be just lots of different flavors of that. Does that make sense? And I'll come and check in with you, make sure that if you have any questions, if you're feeling stuck. In fact, if anybody's feeling stuck, come grab me. And I don't want you feeling kind of. I want everybody to be able to work through the whole process here. I'm not going to leave anybody behind here. And so one of the temptations with this may be to get into conversation with other people and have a chat. And what I really want to encourage you to do is I want to challenge you to stay with this task, and really see this as you investing time in you to really connect with what's below the surface. What are the. And another way I use this sometimes with clients is it's like in the same way as each of your, if you have a computer or a laptop, it has an operating system. I see that it's like, this is like if you have Windows, back in the day it was Windows 7 and now it's Windows 14 or whatever it is, and it gets an upgrade every now and again. The old document and the new document, it's like an upgrade. This is what it's like. And so what we're wanting to do is understand the old operating system so that we can create a new operating system. That's another way of languaging that might be helpful for some of you. So let me just check my notes that I've covered what I wanted to cover with you before you go and do that. So I'm going to give you 30 minutes, and so that's so come back at 12:15, and you can stay here and do that. There's an area just down towards the reception where it's like where people have breakfast, but we're allowed to use that. We're welcome to use that area if you want to go there and sit at a table, or it's a bit more spacious than this. If you want to have a bit more space, you can do that, or you can stay here. And if you've any questions, please feel free to shout. Everybody okay with that? Great.
Yes.
See you in 30 minutes.